the low, I've been taking my time. I feel like I'm out of my mind. It feel like my life ain't mine. I've been on the low, I've been taking my time.
Hey guys, welcome back to Project Mayday. These are G and Bree, and we got a new setting here. We're at the house of Jimmy Pierson. He is a 911 ambulance owner, COO, in fact, and he will take you from being entry level all the way to him being COO, and he'll take you through whatever it takes to be that level. Jimmy, welcome.
Thanks, guys. It's awesome to be here. I can't thank you guys enough for coming and what you're doing for our industry, but thank you so much.
No, thank you for having us. So just to, point blank, start it off.
Yeah.
How did you start off the family business?
So, we're blessed to be in a family business. My grandparents and uncle immigrated from Italy. My Aunt Marisa, my Aunt Alda. So my mom's one of four. And my uncle, my grandparents. My uncle was an EMT in Sacramento. And I'm kidding you, kind of how it's part of my history too, right? So I know. But he started as an EMT in Sacramento. I was Superior Ambulance. Through a friend, heard of an Italian owner named Jimmy Burton, which is kind of weird, but it didn't sound too Italian. But in Vallejo, that was selling his ambulance service. And my grandparents, like I said, they immigrated. My grandpa started as a taxi cab driver. They had nothing. Actually, so crazy back in those days, you had to be sponsored to come in. I think it's still the same, but his aunt at the time, when he bought a house in East Sacramento for like $8,000, right? She thought he was making too much, so she fired him. And he had to start. They started a janitorial service in Sacramento, and that's what they did at night in downtown and K Street, and they cleaned those buildings. And they moved to another house that our family still owns to this day on B Street. And I know I'm giving you too much, but this is kind of the history of how we got here, right? And they paid their house off. They were retiring, and my uncle had this idea to buy an ambulance service. And so, if you were a 65-year-old immigrant who had your family paid off, your house paid off, would you give your kid a loan? Mm-hmm. Right? And so they helped my uncle. They mortgaged their home. Gave him the down payment to buy what is now Medic. And so that's, Medic that's June 1, 1979. I was born in 84, so Medic's older than me. So my entire life, my summers were going to Medic, or seeing ambulances, seeing the red lights, seeing the paramedics and the EMTs around the station, Travis, Grace, old school name, and all, actually it's so funny, all the current captains and battalion chiefs, retired chiefs I grew up with as a kid at Medic. I would watch the ambulance. My Aunt Marisa, who I said earlier, she became part of Medic in 1980. My mom came in 1988. And my Aunt Marisa is blind, right? Legally blind, but she would work in dispatch. And this is before CADs, right? You didn't need to click on a computer, right? Everything was handwritten. So as a 7-year-old, I'd see it and I loved it, right? I loved, I liked chess even at that age. And so I would sit down with her and I would write out, she would take the call from the 911 center. She'd write it out, and then I would either call the station and tell them they had a call or go over the radio. And I'd love to hear those recordings of a 7-year-old dispatching you to a 911 call. But you'd write it out, you'd stamp it, and do all that, and I loved it, right? I remember to this day, I think I was like 10 or 11, and Travis, and actually, talking about full circle, at the time her name was Isabel Leach. She's now Isabel Bostock. She's an ER tech at Kaiser, and she was a longtime EMT and paramedic for us. And her son George works for us now. And so I remember George.
Bostock, yeah,
Bostock, right. So, but Izzy, I remember them coming back from a stabbing back in the day. That days they didn't wear gloves. You only wore gloves on those types of calls. So I remember when they had the gloves and just crazy stuff. And we had so many cool crews that are now, like I said, captains and chiefs and retired chiefs and people that are eternal friendships. And it was just seeing that and knowing what my family gave up, sacrificed. And yeah, now we're a bigger company and we've done a lot of great things over the last 42 years, but even just the last 10, 15 years. But it wasn't always peaches and rainbows, right? I mean, our Christmas dinners were fights, you know what I mean? Like, okay, well, the Medic people are over here arguing about Medic, the other families over here opening gifts. And I mean, that's how we live and breathe this thing. And so I saw that from my uncle, my aunt, and my mom had three major characteristics that were all equally different. My uncle was an EMT, he's a caregiver. My Aunt Marisa had no clue about clinical, but she would turn the lights off, right? She would make sure the ordering's right. She would make sure the business side, right? And then my mom took over the billing, revenue cycle, and they each had their own, but they're brothers and sisters too, right? So it's I did it, you did it, right? But there was such a great team for me to grow up and watch. And so, as I just grew up in the business and being around it, that never left me. So when I went to high school and played sports, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then as I graduated high school, I started my senior year, started working as an SST and as a dispatcher.
And what does SST mean?
Sorry, supply support technician. So I'd restock the ambulances, and I loved it, right? And I wasn't going to go to a 4-year for whatever reason. I could have got to a couple, but I was like, my sisters went to JC, so I went to Sac City. And the moment I went to Sac City, I'm like, this is stupid. I should have gone to a 4-year, right? That was just me. Everybody's different, right? You have people that are 4-year people and 2-year people, and I should have been in a 4-year, but I didn't. So I just got motivated to work, right? And I loved being an EMT. I became EMT fairly quickly, but I loved being dispatching. My first day dispatching, I created like 2 posts, right? I know it's weird, but it came so natural. And Linda, who was a dispatch soup at the time, was a dispatch soup since I was like 5. So I knew her my entire life. And when I'd ask her, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? And she's like, well, I don't know. But there's things that like I can't really explain, right? Like I remember Travis is I was like 12 or 11. Travis gave me the entry EMT test we used to have back in the day, and I failed it miserably. But the sad thing was, I beat 3 of the people that actually applied as EMTs, right? And it's just something that like I just watched them, and they're just and people talk about old school medic or just old school EMS, mother drugs and speed. That's how it was. People were just really loyal. Just ride or die, just cool, just awesome people that built my foundation to what I wanted to be. Yeah,
and then speaking of that ride or die and that culture into what it is now, you were at the entry level and then worked your way up, through being a paramedic in the field. This is a person who's a COO and working in the field as a paramedic for his for his mom's company and grandparents' company. That's admirable. Yeah. And that's why we wanted to bring you on, because that's a different aspect. Yeah. And tell us about that aspect. Tell us about growing up, knowing that you have an ambulance company. However, you have to climb through the ranks to be.
And that's the thing. I'm not dumb in nepotism, right? But again, in life, you're gonna have opportunities that others don't, right? And whether it's what gives it to you, right? I was, for whatever reason, I had this opportunity, but I could have said. There's a lot of kids I grew up with that had opportunity and didn't take it, right? So, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, right? I don't know if I wanted to go to nursing school or do that route. But once I became an EMT, once I did dispatching and SST, and then an EMT was over, right? This is what I wanted to do. And so, I remember when I went to paramedic school, Travis telling me, going, you can't fail. Like, you can't. Like, like he was almost warning me, like, dude, either go admin route, but don't go this route. But that, and Trav was my life, right? I mean, just as an EMS and a medic, and so he would tell me straight up. He goes, you're gonna go on your internship and you can't fail because everyone's gonna look at you. Yeah. And if you mess up, they're gonna look at you.
How was that pressure?
I knew it wasn't that, because you know what? I loved it. So I was not the greatest student, like. I tell a story because my grandparents died, or my grandma died. It was real close to my freshman year of high school. Things happened. My GPA my freshman year was a .85. You know how you get, people are like, you got to try to get that. Well, I don't know. I do, right? But by the time I graduated, I had a 3.6, right? So it's just development, right? And so I didn't like school, even at Los Rios, but Sac City. I wasn't an A/B honor roll student. But I was number 2 in my medic school class. So just something clicked. I loved being a paramedic. I loved EMS. So that pressure didn't bother me, because I knew I was in it for the right things. I wasn't in it to be the president or the COO. I love being a medic. Yeah. And, I mean, in my first 3 years as a medic, I had the hours of a 10-year medic.
Yeah.
I worked over 5,000 hours each year
Yeah.
for my first 3 years. I loved it.
Do you feel like you had to do that because you were a prodigy?
One, we needed openings, right? So I needed to kill overtime. But no, I mean, listen, I had to prove myself, man. You know, when I was an SST, I had EMTs look at me like, you're just an SST. You can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Then when I became an EMT, I had medics and managers saying, you're just an EMT, you need to be quiet. Then when I became a medic, the medics kind of quieted down, right? And then the soups were like, well, you're not a soup. And then all of a sudden, I became, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was never like that. Like, because I understand if you see somebody like, oh, this kid is going to possibly take my job.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like that. You do your job, you're never going to have a problem with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to compete with me as a person. I have a different path because I know that. But my uncle never said, hey, Jimmy, you become a medic for 5 years, there's a key to your castle.
Yeah.
Because there was 2 males in my family before me, right? My cousin was a paramedic in his 19s and 20s, and he became, he's a Vacaville fire captain, right? Very successful. Just this wasn't his path for whatever reason. My other cousin, my Aunt Maurice's son, was a nurse. He's actually almost the director of public health in Fresno. Very successful, would have killed it a medic. But for whatever reason, our family's not like, hey, you're gonna get this.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the timing was right for me. Me and my uncle had really good synergy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong. We're family. We're Italian men. We butt. But he knew that I was in it for him, and we were in it together.
Yeah.
And he let me do a lot of things as I grew up within the industry, and I cared about it. So.
Yeah. So you talked about nepotism and you said, hey, I took this opportunity, right? So you're talking about a lot of people don't have the opportunity. So people who are even interested in EMS that are listening, or are brand new EMTs, EMRs that are starting out, what would you give them for a word of advice?
That's a great thing. So here's the thing. We're always looking for great employees, right? So it doesn't matter. You don't have to own the business. And guess what? We were talking earlier about Todd Valeri in Fresno, an American. He wasn't even a family member, and he just made himself a valuable piece of that community, that company, and he had the opportunity to eventually buy it. Now he's the single owner. So you never know. I've had even family members, say, well, you got opportunity. Well, listen, you don't know what life's going to show for you. But I would say that if you want to work in private EMS, right? You want to be an EMT or paramedic, you want to be fired. First of all, when you come into EMS, you don't know where you're going to end up, right? But there's so much opportunity for great employees, right? So if you're a great person and you have a great work ethic and you want to do this, and it's not just a check, which some people it is, but you can still be a good employee if that's it.
Oh, absolutely.
But if don't worry about because I can't be an owner, because you don't know. You could be the next generation of owners, because this generation, every generation cycles through. Doesn't mean that has to be. Well, you have to be an owner to get that generation, right? There's so much opportunity. So I think it's a great question, because just because you maybe not be the owner, you don't know what the future holds. But if you got a great work ethic, you love people, you love helping people, you love the industry, you're going to be great.
So speaking of that generation, your grandparents and your mom and all that, your uncle, what are you instilling with your generation? What is the legacy left behind for Jimmy when he leaves medic?
Yeah, I don't know. But I could say my goal is to just always make medic better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not perfect. I say that in the academy when I talk to employees. We're not perfect, but I could say that during my time, medic's a better place than what it was before I was here, right? We're stronger. We run more calls. We have great employees. We're much... we've been able to grow with the third generation, which not a lot of companies can do. And I also think it also comes down to that we were never, and that goes to my grandparents, my uncle, my aunt Marisa, my mom. We were never given anything, even though people might think that. We all had to work for it. Cindy's a nurse. My sister Cindy is our VP of quality. She's a nurse practitioner. She worked at UC Davis. She got her BSN. She got her nurse practitioner as the VP. So we're not stopping. Sandy, same thing. My cousin Christy. Each of us have our own parts of the business.
Niche,
and we care. That's the other part, right? We don't just, hey, cool, thanks, this is a great business, we're out. We love it. So I'm on calls every day with either the state association, a national association, something that has to do with the industry to keep improving it. And I think that's a big deal for us, right? It's not just, it's a check.
Right.
This is a business, but it's our life, it's our community. Right, where we live is where we cover, and we're not just trying to rapidly grow. That's not Medic. That's never been our. Will we grow? Yes. I mean, we've proven we can grow, but it's not like, oh, we just want to prove to this person that we have 800,000 calls and this. We want to control our market, which we've done. We want to build great local relationships. We want to prove ourselves with our great employees. We want to support our employees the best we can. But again, we're not perfect. I can say all those great things, but we're not perfect.
So, Jimmy, speaking of supporting your great employees, obviously Project Mayday is about mental wellness. And what is something, you talk about a lot of progression in the last decade. What's something that the company has done to promote mental wellness?
So, the funny thing is, as we've evolved, from the old school to the new school, mental wellness, and that's part of being a baby industry, right? That we really are now that we're hitting 50 years or whatever as an industry. That's a huge piece that's come on, and it should have came on 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But it was just like, right, but that's not how it is. And so we saw that many years ago, started a coaches program, which is essentially caring for our employees and creating cool acronyms because it's EMS. Right? But we took it from a company out of Missouri. There was a smaller service that created their coaches program to support their employees. Turned it in even, I think, to a 501, or I don't know what they call it in Missouri, but it's a nonprofit too, to help support other issues that are going on for their employees. And we hopefully can develop something like that. But the coaches program is essentially training any employee that wants to be CISD trained that can help support critical incident training, support. We have a bad call. Those coach will give a call. Matt McCarthy, who's one of our long-term EMTs, is our leader of the coaches program. Deidre Newton, who's a supervisor, she helps with the management side so that it doesn't get caught up at our executive level, that they can do what they need to do and have the full support of our team. But the coaches, they're there to support each other and not management saying, hey, come talk to me. Right? Because some people are like, no, you guys, and that's even Deidre was a coach and now she's a supervisor. We've had to teach her to back off a little bit because this isn't an employee support group. We're there to support and get whatever we need. But yeah, and we also have a local counselor that we pay for out of our EAP, Employee Assistance Program, that's not part of that. So if we have an employee that has issues, we can send them to an EMS-specific counselor here in Solano County.
All right, Jimmy, so who do you turn to? What do you do?
Man, I got my wife. So I have my wife, I have my sisters. I mean, when you're in a family business, that we have our family. So we're lucky, right, for that. And I have a very supportive wife who helps me. Having kids is really helped too. But, I'm blessed to have a good family support system behind me, and I think that's number one. Yeah, that's who I turn to. I annoy the crap out of my wife.
I hear it from your office, no. So let's go back a little bit to the back end of things that people don't really hear in running 911 calls as a medic. The people out there that just think that we go to 911 calls and nothing happens on the back end. What happens on the back end? When a 911 call is responded to, what happens on the back end?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many layers to that question and answer. But if we just go with what happened recently, we had a local firefighter go into cardiac arrest. Our crew was on the fire, got canceled from the fire, then got called back code 3, saw a crew go on CPR, and then they see it's a firefighter they run with. That's crazy. That's an emotional call. And it was a newer paramedic who'd been with us for a couple years, and a newer EMT been with us for a little over a year. But I called them hey, listen, I've been in Solano County as an EMS provider for over 21 years. Haven't had that. I've had officer-involved shootings, which are emotional in themselves. But we run with fire. We're in it with fire every day on every call. PD and us are on those certain calls, but us and fire on every call almost. So that's a never event, right? And so we sent that crew home. And so it's just making sure that on those calls that we educate employees, not just on that firefighter, because that's a never call, but letting them know that every call has its own trigger.
Yeah.
Right? You can run on. I remember running a call, lady reminded me, and she wasn't, obviously I'm white, but this is an African American lady, and she reminded me of my grandma. It was crazy the way she talked, the way she did this, the way she communicated with me, and that was crazy. Like, it's just how I felt after the call. Just wanted to go back and make sure she was good, which I do with most of my patients, but like this one was just totally different level. And it's like understanding that we have to process it. I think EMS is fun for ex-athletes, I think, because we like playing games, right? And I might play the same team 3 different times, and we'll have this. You can have the same score, but the way we got that score will never be the same.
100%.
And if I run a call, diabetic call, on the same lady, same corner, same city, it's never the same.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I love about EMS. That's the thing that you don't get out of always a desk job, or that you won't always, that even being able to have that clinical side, it's so cool. Whether in a hospital, whether, you're doing different aspects of EMS, everything we deal with is different.
So I really like going into the administration side of things just because people really don't know, right? And one of the big things with EMS, especially in California, is the disparity between private industry and fire, right? When we talk about salaries, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, it's kind of different because medic is union, and so it's very transparent. So we don't really... There's a lot of things with medic that's different because the private industry, you don't have to be union based, and everyone can have a different pay scale. So that really does create a lot of equity. But in your personal opinion, in the state of California, and I'm not just talking about medic, I'm talking about private industry versus fire, what do you think is the big difference for paramedics, EMTs to get paid?
I think it's just a bottom line, right? I mean, that's just the reality, is that we can't afford to run our system at that level, paying those paramedics that. I can't speak to fire economics on how they exactly do it, but I can know that if I paid what a starting medic would be at a fire department in California, and what I paid on my rig, we'd be in the red. So, and that sucks. I mean, I would love to pay them as much as we can. And medic's always been very aggressive in our pay, especially in the Bay Area. Now we're in union negotiations right now, and so hopefully we'll keep that level of being very competitive. But it's tough, we lose to fire because of that, and we don't want to. But you also have to understand that you can. Why are you losing people? If I'm losing other people to other privates, there's a major issue, right? Which we rarely do, voluntarily, right? But if we lose them, we lose them, but we lose them to fire. And that then becomes up being good, right? I mean, to some degree, it's career development. That's where some people want to go, and then some people realize, I don't want to be a firefighter, and they come back, right? So we don't condemn that you want to be a firefighter, right? That's the biggest thing too, is over the last many years for us, it's been okay. Like, I've been at so many different fire guys' graduations that work for us, that got hired, that proud of them. Hey, that's what they want to do. Cool. But in California, there's a disparity in terms of what a fire paramedics get paid and what a private paramedics get paid. And all I can say from my perspective, it's a fiscal thing.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to not be in the red for your family.
Right.
Yeah, you got to take care of your family. On that, this man hasn't been in this, chief executive or operation position all his life. He's been a medic. So talk about that mental aspect of it. Dive deep down into some calls, if you're willing to. Talk about it. Talk about some calls that have affected you.
Yeah, so I go right to a call we had in Vallejo that I actually super responded. It was for a baby not breathing. And when we got there, and fire medic I've known for a long time, used to work for us. Actually, him and his wife met at our company. I'm still good friends with him today. But he was there, and then one of my friends was the paramedic on the rig. Get there, and I had the airway, and I remember going for the airway, and I remember, you look, and especially on a baby, this 9-month-old baby, you're looking for anatomical stuff. So I thought I saw the vocal cords because I saw a little white thing, so I went for it, but it felt like I hit a wall. It was just weird, right? I've had PD tubes before, and I suction because I'm like, maybe there's something there, and then I go again, see the same thing, and I go and just hit a wall. But, in my head, so we just start bagging again. we started going get in the back. Matt is my friend, our medic, and he tries to intubate. Same thing, doesn't get it. Finally, the fire medic, and you're probably not really the right trained in school to do it this way, but elevated the baby like this and was able to, not rip her, but looked in with them before and saw, like, by what I was doing, what Matt was doing was suctioning. All of a sudden, if you have like a napkin, it was coming out like this much out. Like, what is that? Looked like gum almost coming out of this airway.
Yeah.
And the fire medic grabs the forceps, we yank it, and it just comes out. And it's like this wadded up. They were baby wipes. So they had been shoving the baby wipes down the throat with every breath the baby had. So we pull it out. We're like, what the?
Yeah.
Because we're 20 minutes into the call, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're CPR, and now we got an airway bag. We pull him right up to Kaiser, bring the kid in. Kaiser gets pulses back, right? Baby dies a week later. Come to find out that the family member, whoever, who shouldn't even have been around the baby, had forcibly put all that stuff down the kid's throat.
Jeez.
So it's like those are, that was a crazy call because we're like, I'm going to what I understand, and then all of a sudden you see that, you're like, whoa, like you just, like good and bad all at once. It's like, what do you think we're doing this? And there's this crazy thing going on. And then some other stuff, and this is just me as a medic, I brought this up about, being an athlete. I obviously don't look like an athlete, but I was an athlete.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Dang right you are.
But I loved the game of it, like, so, I'm not saying I don't personalize patients, but they're patients, right? And then I get to the next call.
Yeah.
That was how I got through it, right? It was patient, next call, patient, next call. And then you have your triggers, and I understand that. But, like, you have calls where, we're trained, we do this, we know this is going to happen. I did everything right. Yeah. But the outcome, and I remember to this day, I was a medic. Actually, the medic I was talking about was my EMT at that time. We ran this call on a golf course, right on a Sunday, beautiful Sunday day, like today. And it was 37-year-old father of 5, was playing golf by himself, got paired with a fire captain and a battalion chief from a local, not Solano County, but adjacent county. They came to play in Vallejo that day. And those 3 got paired up together, randomly. Well, he hits a drive, and he goes down, right? The battalion chief and the captain are like, boom, they started CPR right away, call 911. And the battalion chief in Vallejo was going from fire station to fire station, just so happened to be right in front of the golf course. He runs up the golf course, right? And gets on scene. We start fire engine, let's go. He gets on scene, applies the AED, takes over CPR, does 2 shocks. It was dope for me because we came driving down the golf course, like literally mid-fairway. And actually, I guess he shot an iron because I remember driving down that's cool, I did it, and done that. So we get on scene, they're doing CPR, they got an AED. I'm like, whoa, you don't see this all the time. And we get out, I'm like, yo, we're going to get this one. Like, a younger dude, like really fit. I remember I got a 14 in his AC. We gave epi, and then the fire crew was 2 of my really good friends from Vallejo. So it was just one of those perfect calls. Like, oh, this is money. We shocked him 5 times, emptied out the drug, got him to Kaiser. They shocked him, worked him for another hour and a half, and called him.
Wow.
Never came back. And I remember 2 weeks later, I had this 90-year-old, almost PEA code, down for 30 minutes. We get pulses back.
Yeah.
Right.
It's frustrating.
It's not our. And so I'm a man of faith, right? So for me, it's just I do what I can control, but it's not our call. That's the way I live it, right? Is that it's just not my call. Who lives or dies? Yeah. I can do my part. I do what I'm trained. Yeah. But I've seen calls, and I just kind of leave it to it's not up to me.
Yeah. And you being a leader within your realm that you're at with medic ambulance, and then also being a medic in the field, when you have employees come up to you and say, hey, I had this bad call, hey, I'm going through something, whatever the case may be, I'm sure you've had that in your stint of being
Yeah.
COO. How do you deal with it?
I try to be receptive, man. I mean, it's fun to talk it out. I think it's therapeutic sometimes to talk it out, and then know that we have resources, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I said earlier, every generation changes, right? And I think one of the positive things of this generation is going to be wellness. Our new workforce chooses wellness over working, right? So it's more likely to get a part-timer to work 2 or 3 days a week so that they can have their time, right? They're not.
Are you an advocate for that?
I'm an advocate whatever somebody wants to do, right? I mean, so I don't think I didn't do that. It worked just fine for me, right? I only hit my dog 4 times a night instead of 3. I'm just saying, like, just that's how. But I'm good with that. Like, I have my, ways to decompress and do what I need to do. So I think everybody's different. I think it's understanding that, just like the world was understanding. Everybody's different. Everybody has different triggers. Understanding it, where in the past it wasn't an understanding. It was like, let's go. If you think you're going to control the workforce over the generations, they're going to change. They're going to adapt. So you got to adapt with them. You can't just say, oh, well, this is how it is.
Now it's time to put you on the hot seat, brother. You ready?
All right, let's go.
All right. So the rule is it's called rapid fire.
Okay.
Rapid fire. It's like you hear the siren, rapid fire, and
They may be going to rapid fire. I don't know.
it's you got to answer in one word or one phrase. All right.
Okay.
So Bree's gonna ask the questions. You got to answer in one word or one phrase.
All right, you ready? First question, what's the hardest part about working with your family?
Speechless.
No, I mean, you said one word, one phrase.
Yeah.
Hardest part.
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Hey, okay. Excluding Jimmy. I want to hear the next one.
What is the hardest part? Well, man, you got me. But
Careful.
I mean, no,
It only gets
it's not
harder
that
from here, brother.
It's honestly hard for me to say it because honestly, I like it and I can deal with the negatives of it. But because I want to say letting go, but I'm able to let go. But the hardest thing is in an Italian family. I know it's one word in rapid fire, but in a family business, what we're really good at least for us, is I say my piece and move on. Right? Like we'll be like people would be like, "Damn, is that what's going on in there?" And that'd be like my mom and Aunt Marisa, Rudy, and us. And then all of a sudden, we're eating lunch together. It's like because it's emotional, right? The business is emotional, our industry is emotional, but for us, we can easily. I mean, not easily. I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it's like, I like being able to say my piece, right? And I can just say it freely. I can't do that if I was just Joe Schmo at, Starbucks. I'd probably get fired, but I can say it, let it go, and move on. So,
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Speaking your piece.
Speaking my piece.
All right.
Okay, second question. How would you rate your karaoke skills on a scale of 1 to Mariah Carey?
Probably below 1.
Give us a
In the
reference.
shower, maybe like in my head, or if I have these cool earphones on, maybe I'll think I'm a 10. Or no earphones, maybe a 10. But then if you put them on, probably -5.
-5. Okay. What's the song you like to sing?
Ooh, well, what's funny is I'm not a big Bieber guy, but the Bieber song out right now, man, I love his album.
Peaches?
Justice. I like Peaches. I'm on Hold On.
Hold on.
Hold On right now is my jam.
Okay.
I could dig Hold On.
Hold on, my Bieber in the shower.
I actually want to see EMS mix video to Hold On because I think it'd be a good.
Okay.
Okay, third question. What's your spirit animal?
Ooh, my spirit animal. Ooh, let me think. What do I dream about? What's a good one that I think that I correlate with? I love lions, so I'm gonna go lion.
Okay, that's a good one.
I think lions.
That is a good one.
All right, question 4. If you didn't run an ambulance company, what would you do?
I'd be running some sports organization.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would have gone that route. I would have loved to have gone route. I mean, my dream would have been to go that route. I love sports. And I actually think it's funny because, in today's world, you don't have, I played high school sports. I wasn't a college athlete, or I think I tried out for Sac City and was cut after the day. But
It's all good.
yeah, but my point is like I love sports, so I would have loved to like come up in some organization somewhere in a perfect world, right?
Yeah.
But I love sports, so I would love to have been there.
All right, last question. What is one word to describe EMS?
Compassion. I mean, I think in so many facets of that. I mean, how we deal. We have a 4 core that we talk about with our employees, and customer care is one. I think that falls into compassion. How you care about your partner, how you care about what your manager's going through, how you care about what your employee, from my perspective, what your patients. You have to have compassion for the person you're working on, right? And I remember we had this discussion earlier, but in our industry, we treat anybody at any time. And so you have to have compassion for someone who just might have injured your friend, right? You have to treat that patient and do it with a high level of care. So I think compassion.
No, absolutely. And you absolutely embody that by being a COO and then also being in the field at 1 a.m.
Right.
with your company. I mean, that definitely embodies it, compassion, and I think that's what 1970. I mean, for whatever the company's been,
Thanks.
has been around. It's compassion, and it's being a part of the just the infrastructure of the county, and then the hospitals, and just absolutely everything that has to do with Solano County. You're involved, and we absolutely commend you for that, man. And then thank you for coming on and talking about the inner workings of an ambulance company.
Oh, this is great. I love it. Go Project Mayday.
This is Project Mayday. Call out.
Call out.